Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is the second installment in the Was I an Occult series. Again, I'm gonna have two series, if that's even a word, series. The first one being Was I an Occult? The second one being how to protect yourself from cyber crimes, mainly cyberbullying and cyber stalking and hacking and everything else that goes along with it. I wanted to give a little bit my backstory because it kind of further helps explain why the two go hand in hand for me. For some people, the two are completely separate, which is fine. So I want to also be able to help people who may be going through one or the other, not both. But there are actually some of you out there who are going through both. And so I want to be able to help you guys as much as possible. But I'm going to try to keep the two videos separate, or the two topics separate rather. There'll maybe some overlapping, like I may discuss the other a little bit while doing a video about the other topic. But overall, just for like ease of use and to help you get information quicker, I'm going to try to keep them separate. If I have a little bit of information on both in a video, I'll try to timestamp. Whenever I have like what I think is really, really important information or resources, I'm going to timestamp as well. And of course, cite sources and link, because I'm really, really passionate about helping other people. Yeah, so just being a victim of this cyber stalking, cyberbullying, and all that, we'll just call it cyber crimes. It really, really kind of made me not only just passionate to get help myself, because it was almost like I wasn't even seeking out the video. I was literally watching just my favorite YouTuber, which is kind of like an entertainment, commentary thing. And it popped up at my feed, so I knew it was meant for me to see that. Because it's so funny, like shortly after, I'm talking maybe the next day is when the first kind of suspicions kind of started coming at me. And it was also the day that I had heard from somebody else who was experiencing the same thing and actually experienced it first. So for you to kind of be able to understand how specifically the cyber crimes worked in my case, I would have to give you a little bit of a backstory. And again, like I said, I'm going to just be doing some videos where that's all I talk about, and that is going to be therapeutic for me just as much as I hope it will be for anybody else. It's all about, reclaiming your power. One of the things that cyberbullies do, especially if they're anonymous, is they try to wield their power, their control, because there's a certain power of being anonymous. It's almost like you don't have to kind of be held accountable, or at least you feel like you don't have to be held accountable. So almost trying to I don't know, just kind of make someone just aware that they have these abilities and intimidate you into thinking that you don't really have rights to protect yourself because maybe you don't have those abilities. It's just wrong, and that's a whole nother aspect of cyberbullying. It's about the intimidation, the threatening language. So, let's see, what do I want to start with first? I guess I'll kind of give a backstory to the whole Was I an Occult? It would be best to start with that. And I'm just going to give a brief overview, synopsis, and then and my first video I dedicate solely to my experience. I'll go more in depth. And honestly, I'm still just recovering from all the stuff I heard. So I'll have a few over the course of the next few weeks. But short version is, I was a member of a really, really wonderful online community. Last year during the pandemic, where so many lockdowns and stuff, online communities became a lifeline and a safe haven for so many people. We were all just suffering from so much isolation and stuff, and a lot of us were just homebound, like hermits, So a lot of stuff was being done online, Zoom probably quadrupled, in popularity, and probably their, value and stock and all that. So I was a member of a few grief support communities online and some of my social medias, and a community that was kind of like, I guess, a fan influencer community that I was a member of with another one of the people in that community invited me into it because in one of their Discord chat rooms they had one exclusively specifically catered towards like support, like, you know, just kind of talking to someone if you just need like an ear to listen or a shoulder to lean on and that sort of thing. That's what that specifically was for, and I was actually invited by a few people from that community specifically to that one, so I gravitated towards that one. And I found out that I made connections with people that were so strong and genuine, which most of them really were. Some of them were not. We'll get into that later. Wow, this is such like a diary/blog. You know, I kind of became in close contact with some of them, and I had mentioned to some of them too, even that like I am a member of a lot of grief support groups that are either online, newsletters, social media. The one that I wanted to go to in person because of COVID, they actually changed it to meeting online. So Zoom and everything until eventually started doing back in person. So at that time, there was a few grief support chats I was following, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but my mom actually passed of COVID. So this was a very, very dark time for me, and the pandemic caused me to feel even more isolated and alone and lonely, you know, being away from my family and lockdowns, being away from friends. It was just a really lonely time. So a lot of people that I've spoken to also identify with kind of gravitating towards certain online communities, which can be very, very helpful. Online communities can provide a sense of like security and comfort, and you may even find, because you have so many shared and common interests, that you feel like you get along more with some of the people in the online community than you do with people in your everyday life, you know, your friends, family, and coworkers. So they can be great. However, as with any subculture, they can also become not so great. And in fact, sometimes they can become toxic. And the thing that kind of led to this one becoming toxic was the influencers, that it was kind of their Discord that belonged to it. They were actually anonymous. Part of their, I guess, being an influencer thing, they're gamers, online gamers on Twitch, and have advertising deals among other ventures. They kind of, you know, had many, I guess they wore many hats, I guess. They kind of were anonymous, which a lot of people are. A lot of gamers are. A lot of people who do other stuff online are. They can be very successful with a podcast. Lots of YouTubers. There are some YouTubers with over 1 million followers right now. No one knows their first name or what they look like. So that can be very, very lucrative for you. You know, lots of other areas of doing things too. I mean, you name it. Like OnlyFans that's another thing that popped off. You know, a lot of people getting laid off from work, and you can be anonymous. You know, you can show as much or as little of yourself as you want, even the people that kind of do not safe for work stuff. So a lot of online ventures and communities were taking off, as well as businesses kind of revolved around that. So anyway, the people in this community, who I'll say from my personal opinion and perspective up until this point, were very, very nice, seemingly genuine people. I feel like their hearts were in the right place. They had good intentions. They really, really loved and appreciated their fan group, their online community. I remember one of the things they did when COVID first started, they got an email from, you know, a fan, a supporter who was on the front line, a doctor who was just very distraught at how many patients he or she, I can't remember, was losing each day, and just saying thank you so much for being like escapism and an outlet for me. And they were so touched and moved by that letter, they shared it. But before they shared it, they asked other people in their community to just send words of encouragement to this doctor, and basically support for not only the healthcare workers in their community, but just worldwide, which was amazing. It speaks volumes to the type of people they were at that time. So I said, I would say that overall, you can never be too sure when you only know so much about people, but from the interactions that I had with them, and actions speak louder than words, their actions, I say for the most part, they were. Even their intentions when they first started becoming influencers, it wasn't like financially driven or kind of money motivated. However, as time kind of went by, you definitely saw that was changing, and more of their actions and everything became more kind of like financially focused and less about kind of like being a community or whatever, them wanting to give back and stuff, and their podcasts and other things they do, and that became very evident. So what happened was, unfortunately, these people who wanted to remain anonymous, because for whatever reason, anyone wants to remain anonymous, no matter what you're doing online, just for your own safety, or for like being stalked or harassed. The irony, they got doxxed. Some very, very not so nice people doxxed them, which caused them a lot of distress. And when I say this was a chain reaction and domino effect, like snowball of events that started from this one single soul instance, that's putting it mildly. It really just, the tipping point, like everything in their online community changed. Now, it's my personal opinion. I feel like they took some time off to pursue these people legally, and I can't even fathom the stress and the sleepless nights and wondering about your safety, not just your online safety, but your safety, physically, when your address is leaked like that, that's detrimental. Even if no one ever actually contacts you or enters your home or whatever, just the thought and the worry and the fear that it could happen any minute. So they pursued those people legally, and rightfully so. However, in the next coming weeks, those of us that kind of were really like close, kind of tight-knit group in their community, we noticed things started to change. They'd always had moderators, but it seemed like the moderators of their community were just much more, like, I guess, strict. And their main concern was ever having any of their privacy invaded again. That was the number one main concern. There are a few others, but this one, I believe, it was almost like them experiencing doxing made them so fearful. Obviously, they'd never want to experience it again, and I guess they felt like by any means necessary, we got to watch out for ourselves. So again, do what you got to do, right? However, me personally, I feel they did not take enough time off from social media. Dealing with a trauma and emotional stress like that, I can't imagine how it would feel to have like fear for your life, like your physical safety, or lose your anonymity, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. But just what I had to go through the past couple of days, just with my online safety and whatnot, I can't imagine. So definitely I have empathy for them there. However, it almost adds like a double-edged sword in it. It kind of even makes the dagger twice as sharp, because someone who's experienced that themselves, I just don't understand how they could inflict that kind of pain on people that support them, that literally are the reason they do what they do. It's like, difficult. People who support them by coming to their Twitch live streams, or, buying their merch or whatever. The fact that they would, at the drop of a dime, inflict that pain on somebody else, I just don't understand. It's like, where's the level of empathy? And again, these are your community members. if you're that paranoid that members of your own community are gonna, break your trust again or take advantage of your vulnerabilities, then maybe you need not be doing the social media thing, the online thing right now. If you still have those fears and issues, point blank, simple as that. That's just my opinion. Because I feel like, even though they're good at what they do, the aspect of just kind of the paranoia and the people closest to them who kind of feed into that, who don't even realize how troubling their actions are, that it's almost like I almost want to hope that they're oblivious to it, because the irony is almost funny. It wouldn't be funny if it wasn't so stressful what they were putting other people through. But I don't know if it's a narcissism thing or what, but the fact that they can't see the irony, the fact that, them having these kind of moderators in the community that kind of what they would call monitor or kind of keep tabs on people, which these behaviors started to slowly, gradually become more and more invasive. And eventually, I heard from someone who had heard from one of the moderators that some of the stuff they were doing was actually downright criminal. They were cyber crimes. Among them, and this is to their own fan base, their own fan community now, not even the people who doxed them, that they had to pursue with legal action in court. These are their fans, the people, promoting them on their own personal social media websites, the people supporting them, buying their merchandise, all that stuff. It's these people. So basically, if something happened, even if it was something as, as simple as just saying something that they disagreed with. And again, I don't know if this is how they always were, or if the kind of doxing just kind of heightened all their insecurities, but you would be what they would call flagged. Now, at the time, I did not know exactly what flagging entailed. Now I've kind of learned more, and I'll also explain more why their flagging procedures also constitute as basically being cyber crimes. Cyber stalking, okay, cyber bullying, just so many things, and ultimately hacking. There is hacking. And I feel like some of the other things are kind of almost gray areas. You would almost kind of have to argue. But you can't deny hacking or phishing, which is an attempt to hack by obtaining someone's personal private information. And a way that you can prove this is to obtain an IP address from the person you think is doing it. Now, unfortunately, you may not always be 100% certain. It's not that hard to find an IP address, but it's not that difficult. But it's also hard to get an IP address if someone has a little bit of information, IT information. They kind of know a little bit about IT forensics. So some people know how to use a VPN and even more sophisticated means to kind of, scramble or protect their own IP address. And as I'm recalling this, it's kind of almost emotional for me because I'm still processing all this. Still almost kind of in disbelief. But yeah, this happened, and again, it's not right. I'm upset that it happened to me, and I feel bad for the others that it happened to. Again, this is just me talking about my personal experience. When I talk about this as a whole, cyberbullying as a whole, I will kind of encompass kind of a kind of a broader sense of, but the bullying just, it almost is just the intimidation and just the threat that, you'll be monitored, or it's just it's very weird that your Instagram account or something even on the front end, having somebody kind of cyber stalk you. And I think that's the other word I was looking for, just stalking you. Just knowing the means that where you can read someone's stories without them knowing it, like, and all that stuff, basically just using all this stuff that can be used for good, for like malintent, you know? The same thing that you can use to kind of protect yourself can kind of be like a dagger towards someone else. So if you're doing that on the front end, that's one thing. But if you're trying to obtain their personal private information, like their email address or password, to try to do God knows what with, again, definitely a cybercrime. That is phishing, and God only knows what they wanted to do with the information they would find if they were able to hack into your account. So thankfully, what they don't know, or I guess we're too kind of self-centered to realize, is that there are some of us within the community who have a little bit of IT forensics knowledge. There are some of us who have a little bit of legal background, who know about cyber crimes and cyber stalking and cyberbullying, and yeah. So when you find something like that out, you know, you have a choice. You can either do nothing, or you can take a stand to let people know this is not right. It's wrong. And if anybody else out there is feeling intimidated by someone or a group of people, you don't have to live in fear. Again, I say a part of the cyberbullying is the kind of the intimidation, the whole telling their community, you know, because we were doxxed and we went through the whole legal process, we have a legal team, we have private investigators, you know, we know how to protect our IP address and all this stuff, you know. Fine, you know, for them. But what happens when you're using your information and knowledge kind of not in the best way? Instead of using it in a good way and help benefit your community, it's more of a harm and a hindrance. And just the whole, again, I'm still getting over the fact that someone was trying to hack into my account, and that I know 99.9% who it was. Lastly, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I'm starting to get a little emotional. There's power in numbers. If you're afraid for whatever reason to come forward, definitely don't do anything until you feel 100% certain that you want to. It's not going to be easy. However, when you are ready, do not let anybody bully and intimidate you into doing what you want to do just to protect yourself and give yourself peace of mind. If someone is saying that they have a legal team and lawyers, and they know that maybe, for example, you may not have much money, maybe you're out of a job because of the pandemic last year, or maybe, you know, whatever, but if, you know, they have the money and the wealth and the means to afford, you know, a lawyer, a good one, and also a private investigator, and if they're kind of saying, you know, for whatever reason they can use them, that is intimidation. If someone hears that and believes that, then basically it's almost kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but basically it almost makes you like not want to, makes you, okay, no, like I would, but I don't have the money. It's not about money. There are other ways you can pursue, because it's criminal, right? Some people are just so money focused. Again, like these people, there's criminal suits and there's civil suits, and civil is where the money is at, but not everybody is focused on money like some other people are. Sometimes it's just about the law and doing what's right. So you can press charges with law enforcement, local law enforcement, state, local, and then there may be even some federal laws. I do think a lot of cyber crimes fall under federal laws, you know. So, and another, lastly, like I said, I was gonna go, and this is just kind of further kind of reiterates, you know, their character. Their core people, the moderators, they had them sign what is called an NDA, which basically is like a non-disclosure. You want someone to not talk about something or a group of events or whatever. Rumor has it the Kardashians have like every person they meet sign one, whatever. Made their moderators sign that. And again, I think this goes back to the wanting to control people because of their doxing. But what they need to understand is that you can't control everybody. And your own small core community of people, maybe you might be able to control them. But if someone has a bad experience or anything, if they experience anything, if they experience being cyberbullied by someone in your community and wants to tell someone else, you can't try to bully them with an unquote NDA. An NDA that's actually invalid. And I'm not sure how many of their moderators that they tried to get signed realize this, but I'm almost assuming that they know, because again, they're constantly bragging and boasting about the legal team that they have and the private investigators. So I believe they know. My heart wants to say, no, they did not know. But I'm leaning more towards the fact that they knew. The NDA is bogus, and it's basically just a further cyberbullying and cyber, intimidation tactic to silence people. It's bogus because they are anonymous. Again, they like to hide under the cloak of anonymity, kind of like the great and powerful Oz until Toto pulls the curtain. And the NDAs don't even have their real full, first and last legal names. And unless, there was a notary public who stamped it, unless there was an exchange of funds, if the people didn't live in the same country, if one had to, be done in a separate country, or there had to be a shaking of hands and exchanging of funds, if none of that happened, then this NDA is invalid. And I do believe they know this because they have constantly, mentioned their extensive, knowledge of the law and their access to lawyers. So again, that just further kind of goes under the umbrella of cyberbullying and intimidating. But more so as it pertains to this instance, I think the cyber stalking is probably what was done more than anything else. And I know for a fact at least by a dozen other people who, once they saw kind of not even any of this, they wanted to leave the community for other reasons, whether it be moral reasons, something happened, or they had a bad experience with someone who is a member of the community, maybe in their online like Discord or something. Whenever someone would leave, say if you did something as simple as like unfollowing them on Instagram, again, because of their paranoia of the people who doxed them and how it happened, it was Instagrammers. That trauma, they're like triggered just like that, and they're told to have the monitors are told to, unquote, monitor that person. Sorry, did I say monitor? Moderator. But they're monitoring, so they are monitored too. But the moderators, who kind of do regular moderation duties for online communities, and then the whole monitoring. This monitoring is a word that they use that is actually cyber stalking, which is illegal, even if you're just doing it on the front end. And if you're sending any kind of message to somebody, don't tell anybody about this, don't tell anybody about that. If you're telling one of your moderators, and this is where it starts to cross over into the cult part, which I'll save for part 3, telling them or trying to discourage them from befriending people outside of the moderation team. Again, the intimidation. That's when the cult part starts to come in. But again, just kind of love bombing the moderators who do so much for them, help them with the doxing, with the finding who was doing the doxing, monitoring, protecting them. It's like, what did you give these people who did that to you in return? Oh, cyberbullying. That's what you're giving them. You're paying them back with cyber stalking them, intimidating them, and having people, or you yourself, attempting to phish them to get their personal private information. So the moderators who are the so-called closest to them, right, have access to them, speak to them more on like a frequent basis, maybe like video type FaceTime, or not FaceTime, sorry, they don't reveal their faces. Sorry. These people believe that they're actually maybe like friends with them. And, again, previously in some ways I would say maybe, but you don't dupe or try to intimidate a friend. You don't have a friend sign a bogus document to try to kind of bully them into silence, to just express whatever. You don't do that. That's not what friends do. Friends do give their time, their energy. Time is the most valuable gift you can give. You can never replace it. Time can never be replaced or returned. And so for them to just give them their time, their energy. Some of them, if they lived, across the globe, maybe they lost sleep because of the gaming. They were moderating for the gaming, and the gaming would go like all hours of the night at like 10, 11, maybe o'clock at night. So if you're like, I don't know, across the pond, that's like in the wee hours of the morning, and just complete disregard for anybody else's, outside, commitments or whatever. Actions speak louder than words. Again, someone can tell you they appreciate you, they love you or whatever with their mouth, but if actions aren't lining up with what you're hearing, what you're hearing and what you're seeing doesn't align, doesn't match up, then you need to take inventory. And again, it just, the whole NDA thing just shows the complete lack of respect, the disregard and disrespect. It's all about control. So yeah, I'm going to go in more detail about IP addresses and power numbers, like I said in my next video. Help you have at least 2 people who are experiencing the same kind of say you're getting like malware, right? A pop-up trying to prompt you for your password, and you have some type of software that can track an IP address, which I will go into why I have that, how I obtained it, how I use it. If 2 people say, okay, it's the same IP address doing that to both of us, that's a pattern, that's a sign. And again, you may think that you can, afford all the high-tech stuff to software to scramble your VPN address. I'm sorry, the high-tech VPNs to scramble your IP address to again help you to remain unquote anonymous. However, there are other ways that you could still be found out. Lastly, it's just arrogance. Like my Instagram account, when I was being prompted to provide my email, the email that popped up, it said, we have your email address is blah, 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 blah. If this is not your email address, please update your email address below for your protection. There's been suspicious activity on your account. I'm like, okay. However, the email address listed was never one of my email addresses, and I've had a few. I never had that email address. The name in the email address was the name of my previous Instagram account. So again, it's like, how would they know that? How would they know that my previous account had that name in it? And lastly, I know I said lastly already, so really I gotta get ready to go soon. Again, if you're making moves, be silent about it. Let them kind of give them enough, rope to hang themselves with. Let them keep doing whatever behavior they're doing. And just if you do choose to speak about it, don't say too much, don't say specifics, but if, you are speaking vaguely and for whatever reason you find out you are targeted, again, it's just further confirmation that you are being targeted, stalked. Because how would they know? And in this instance, there were people who said specific things, and it's like, wait a minute, how did you know I created this additional chat, or how did you know I had this additional Discord group? Cyber stalking, that's how. But myself, I created what's called a honeypot, and it's how you can catch a cyber criminal. You can intentionally do it, and you can unintentionally do it. And I literally made this Instagram account that was supposed to be, support for people who suffered, cyberbullying, online cyber, crimes. Because there was such a close correspondence of time from when I created the account to when I started getting those pop-ups, it's almost like someone was trying to deter me from creating the account, in addition to trying to obtain, my personal private information, my email and password. It's like they were telling on themselves, because again, I never mentioned their name. If you do something like you want to speak out, like for example, like myself, you make a YouTube page or something, and if all of a sudden you hear someone's trying to get it taken down or whatever, again, they're just further telling on themselves that they are doing the cyber stalking. If you can say that something is happening, then there's a reason, So yeah, that's it for now. And I will be back with installment 3 very soon. Again, I'm going to link some resources below. If this information has helped you, or you think it might help somebody who's had to deal with cyber crimes such as cyber stalking and cyber bullying, feel free to share. And thank you for listening. Take care.